breaking news is that all 20 living Israeli hostages have been freed. We sort of knew that must be going to happen, because otherwise, why would Donald Trump have flown in there on Air Force One, which he did a few hours ago, barely an hour ago, actually. He's going to be speaking soon alongside Netanyahu, and then he'll be going to Tel Aviv. And of course, there's that major peace conference gathering in Egypt, where our own Prime Minister will be there too. Miriam Cates.
It is an incredible day of celebration. For 2 years, the Israeli government has been working for this day. Of course, we have seen other hostages released earlier, but the temporary peace deals that were arranged to bring those into being, of course, have broken down every single time. A great day of celebration. But also, as you were saying, Andrew, what is next in terms of those prisoners that have been released from Israeli jails, many with huge murder scores on their head, many terrorists now being released back into the West Bank or back into Gaza or sent to other countries? This is a massive price that Israel is paying to get their 20 hostages back.
And many of them will be young men. They were radicalised. They would have spent maybe 2 years in prison, and they may want revenge. They will still be, if they follow the Hamas creed, they will want to see the eradication of Israel from the map of the world. And this is almost the easier stage, Miriam, isn't it? Freeing the hostages. The next stage is the de-arming of Hamas. How do they do it? Who supervises it? How can we be certain that they have given up all their arms? And then, even more complicated, after the rebuilding of Gaza, one report I read today said it would take 2 years to clear the rubble.
Yes.
Who governs Gaza?
More bombs have been dropped on Gaza throughout the last 2 years than in Dresden and Berlin in the Second World War puts together.
It is
I read so. It's incredible destruction. But you're talking about the disarming of Hamas. Hamas have said that they are not willing to lay down their arms. They're willing to no longer be involved in the running of the Gaza Strip, but they will not disarm. So that is one of the points of the 20-point plan put forward by Donald Trump, is that Hamas must disarm. If one of those points has already been rejected by Hamas, we have to ask, what would be the consequences? For example, if they continue to refuse to disarm, would the Israelis try to disarm them by force? Would that then be seen as a breach of the terms of the ceasefire? And what would happen then? It's all very fragile.
And remember, there will be people in Netanyahu's cabinet who do not accept the terms of this peace deal because they're not agreeing to disarm, who will be pushing for the Hawks will be pushing at any point for it to unravel the whole deal.
And huge question marks over who will run the Gaza Strip. So the Israeli Defense Forces have already withdrawn to a previously agreed line. The Israelis are now only in a half of the Gaza Strip. So who governs in the other half right now? Well, let's go to
Please don't tell me Tony Blair.
Well, I think his name is certainly in the running for a potential involvement. But I think Trump has backtracked slightly, and he was reported in the Telegraph this morning as having said something along the lines of, well, I'm waiting to see what a popular choice he would be.
Well,
so
it wouldn't be popular in this country.
Left room.
Let's go and talk now to our Home Security Editor, Mark White, who can tell us more. Mark.
Well, the Israeli Defense Forces have now confirmed what we've been reporting for the last 15 minutes, that those remaining 13 hostages have now been transferred into the care of the Red Cross for transportation out of the Gaza Strip and to the safety of the Israeli authorities after 738 days in captivity. You can't even begin to imagine what must be going through the minds of those hostages. Interestingly, some of the hostages and their families were able to talk to each other in the last couple of hours via video telephone calls that were made by Hamas to their loved ones. So at least their loved ones, even though the first 7 hostages had been released, were able to know that their loved ones were also in the process of being released. But of course, if you are the families of those who have been held for so long, you are not going to be finally relieved until you know and you have confirmation from your own government that these people have actually crossed the border into Israel and into the safety of the Israeli authorities. And what will be happening next, understandably, given the conditions that these people have been held in for more than 2 years now, is that they will be undergoing medical checks. There is no doubt that there could be some complex medical needs, let alone the psychological needs for these hostages, former hostages, that will need to be addressed in the hours and the days ahead. But of course, as soon as it's possible, which will be soon, they'll be able to meet up with some of their loved ones again, as they've been desperately waiting to do that for the last 2 years. And we should just say, for those looking at the images on GB News television, you can see on the left of the screen the main chamber in the Knesset there as they await Donald Trump, the US president, and his remarks to the Israeli parliament. This is a man absolutely very widely seen throughout Israel as being pivotal to the process that is now underway today, the release of these remaining hostages, and the hope, of course, that the 20-point peace plan that his administration has put in place will be adhered to, that the parties on both sides, in conjunction with, of course, a lot of other interested parties in that region, particularly some of the Gulf Arab states, they'll be able to continue down that path to peace, and we could have something that is just a bit more sustainable and longer lasting than what we've seen of late. You're looking now at helicopters that are waiting to pick up those hostages, former hostages, to transport them to the medical facilities in Israel, as we saw with the first 7 hostages who were released just over 2 or so hours ago. We've seen this over the last 2 years, this kind of process of releasing a certain number of hostages, but no more than a dozen or 2 at a time, and then the remainder of the hostages remaining in captivity for this period of time. Well, now finally all of those hostages, alive and dead sadly, will be released from the Gaza Strip and returned back to Israel. And it is incredible to look at the images on the right of the screen that are coming from Hostage Square in central Tel Aviv. I've been in there and you cannot help but be moved by what you're greeted with in there, because it's not just well-wishers who are turning up. You see in there hostage family members who, have taken turns to mount a vigil there within Hostage Square, keeping up the pressure on the Israeli government to ensure that the plight of their loved ones are front and centre of everything that Israel has been doing over the last 2 years. And now, finally, even though of course it's tinged with the sadness of realising that 28 or so of those hostages didn't make it back alive, it is their remains that are being returned. But even that is very, very important for those loved ones, finally to be able to get their loved ones' remains back, to give them a decent and proper burial, and to begin the grieving process proper, because of course it's been suspended for such a long period of time.